Welcome to The Silent Verdict.
With Clara Monroe and Elias Gray.
All right, let's talk about something we've all thought about. You're sitting at a crazy long red light, and you see it, that beautiful, empty gas station parking lot. A perfect little shortcut. It seems so harmless, right? Just a quick way to save a few seconds. But is it? Seriously, think about it. Have you done it? Been tempted? Because it turns out, whether that move is clever or a really costly mistake, well, the answer is a whole lot more complicated and frankly, a lot more serious than you'd probably guess. Picture the scene. You're running late, the light's been red forever, and that corner lot is just sitting there, calling your name. So you swing the wheel, cut through, and bam! Your rearview mirror lights up with red and blue flashing lights. And this is where it gets confusing for so many people. Getting pulled over for that? It can feel totally random, like the officer is just looking for a reason. But the truth is, this isn't just a random thing. It is a specific, ticketable offense in a ton of states.
So, okay, what does the law actually say? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at one state's law that's a perfect example of what you'll find pretty much all over the country.
So here it is, straight from the Michigan Vehicle Code. And the language is surprisingly clear. It all comes down to one little phrase: for the purpose of avoiding obedience to a traffic control device. In other words, it's all about your intent. It's about why you made that turn. And listen, don't just think red lights. The law's definition of a traffic control device is pretty broad. That means the exact same rule applies if you're trying to dodge a stop sign, a yield sign, or any other official signal that's there to keep traffic flowing safely. The law is also really specific about where you can't cut through. It covers the obvious stuff, private lots like gas stations and strip malls. But it also includes public property that isn't an actual road. So no, you can't cut through the local park's parking lot either, even if your taxes help pay for it. Now here's a super important legal term you gotta know: civil infraction. This means it's not a crime. You're not going to jail for it, but you are getting a ticket. And that little distinction, it has massive implications if you decide to fight it in court. We're about to see exactly why. But let's take a step back. Why is this even a law in the first place? Is it just some sneaky trap to write more tickets? Not really. The answer gets right to the heart of all traffic laws. It's that classic battle between your personal convenience and everybody else's safety. I mean, just think about a busy gas station for a second. You've got people walking from their cars to the store, kids in the back seat, someone pumping gas. They are absolutely not expecting a car to come flying through the lot trying to beat a light. That's the exact danger this law is trying to prevent. When you really look at it, you see two totally different mindsets. The driver's thinking about their own little world. I'm late, this light is taking forever, but the law has to look at the big picture. Fairness to all the other drivers who are waiting their turn, the hidden dangers, and the simple fact that a private parking lot isn't a public road. So, this brings us to that moment on the side of the road. The officer is walking up to your window, and they're pretty sure you just cut that corner to skip the light. What now? Is there anything you can say to talk your way out of this?
Oh, officers have heard every excuse in the book. I was gonna get gas, but then I saw my tank was full. Or, I actually work here, I was just checking on things. And the classic, but officer, I was driving really slow and safe. The real question is, do any of these defenses actually work when it matters?
Because that's what it all boils down to, right? If you fight this ticket, you're gonna end up in court. And it's gonna be your story versus the testimony of a police officer. So how on earth does a judge decide who's right? The answer, believe it or not, is in that phrase we saw a minute ago: civil infraction. Because this isn't a criminal case, the standard of proof required is completely different. And that one single fact is the reason these tickets are so incredibly hard to beat. You see, in a criminal trial, the prosecutor has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a really high bar. But for a traffic ticket, a civil infraction, the standard is way, way lower. It's called a preponderance of the evidence. All the state has to do is show it's more likely than not that you did.
And the difference here is just massive. Think about it like this. For a criminal case, you need to be like 95% sure. The proof has to be overwhelming. But for your traffic ticket, they just need to hit 51%. Just barely more likely than not. That's it.
So let's be real about what this means. A judge has a police officer, a trained professional, testifying that they saw you cut a corner to avoid a light.
And then there's you, the person who has to pay a fine if you lose. Who do you think the judge is going to find more likely to be telling the objective truth? That officer's testimony almost always clears that low 51% bar.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. We've seen the law, we've seen the safety reasons behind it, and we've seen the legal standard that makes these tickets so tough to fight. Which brings us right back to where we started. Is taking that shortcut ever worth the risk?
So what's actually at stake? In a state like Michigan, it comes down to this number: 3. That's how many points you'll get on your license for this ticket, the exact same number you'd get for blowing through the red light itself. And you know what those points do to your insurance rates?
So here's the final breakdown, plain and simple. Cutting that corner, it's illegal. The consequence? A fine and points on your license. The reason for the law? Public safety. And trying to fight the ticket? It's really difficult, and you'll probably lose, all because of that low standard of proof.
At the end of the day, when you strip everything else away, that's what this is really about. That tiny moment of impatience, those 10 or 15 seconds you might save, simply isn't worth risking the safety of a random bystander. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. The next time you're stuck at that light, and that corner parking lot is looking so tempting, what's going to be going through your head? The couple of seconds you might save, or the real risks and consequences you now know are waiting on the other side?